So this is a style guide for your new design ideas project, designing a logo and a style guide for a new travel company with a particular market, so a particular kind of travel destination and a particular demographic or age group of people that you're looking to design for. So hopefully you've gone ahead and chosen some colours that you think suit that market. Now we're going to talk about how you would set up what's called a mini style guide to show the client, but also for anybody who wants to design using your logo. So step one, get your logo in Illustrator onto this style guide template, place it at the top, and then we want to work with the colours to make sure that we're actually using Pantone. So you still need to go back and probably change the colours in here. You may have just put random RGB ones in there rather than Pantones. So let's just talk about what a Pantone is. A Pantone is a set of printed colour swatches. They're special colours and they go into a different ink vat than the cyan, magenta, yellow and black that's used for the majority of printing. And the reason we have to use Pantone colours is it's a bit like mixing our special house paint colour. And it's for colours, particularly like yellows and oranges, that will turn quite brownish if you try and use the CMYK version of them. So ideally you work with Pantones, or you check the CMYK version of your colour to make sure it actually works by looking at the colour swatch book. So once you've chosen those physical colours on a physical swatch book and you've shown the physical sample to the client, you agree on that colour, then you've got to set up your file. So you go to the window library, swatch libraries, and you'll find the colour books in here, and there are different ones. So a client or a printer might tell you you've got to work with a particular set of colours. And the idea of these is that once you specify the colour, you put the colour name down and its colour code, it doesn't matter where in the world it's printed, they can mix up that exact same colour. So it doesn't matter which printer's working with it, it will be the same colour. And that's what a client wants, particularly with their logo designs. It's very important that their branding colour doesn't change from job to job. Otherwise, it sort of erodes the identity. It doesn't help establish the identity of the company. So as a designer, you'll work with a really quite big style guide that has a lot of detail. We're just doing a mini one as a first go at it. So I would suggest you actually buy one of these swatch books when you can, a physical one. And I would buy this one, around $100 or so, on the internet, have a look around, because it has the Pantone colour and next to it, it shows the CMYK swatch. So you can talk to your client about whether that Pantone colour's the right one for them or not, or whether the CMYK version of it, which is cheaper, would be okay. So once you get in there, open it up, and you'll notice that you can tell when you're working with a Pantone colour because it does have these little white side triangles there. So I'm going to try and match this by eye and get something I think is pretty close. So I might be using an RGB, but I want to switch it to the closest colour there, and the same with my magenta. Is it actually a magenta? We can use the processed magenta for that, or we might decide we want to use one of these, which is a particular numbered one. You might decide you think it looks better. That's up to you. So make sure everything is in that Pantone, and it's a good idea when you first start designing to not just switch into putting any old colours that you get off whatever swatches are open. But if it's a branding and logo design, you should be working with Pantones right from the start. So again, I wouldn't be matching this from the screen to here. I'd normally be looking at the printed colour swatch and making sure I got myself the nearest match to that. So that's probably pretty good. Maybe I should have used that one. Too light. So I might spend a bit of time fiddling around to get the one that I think is perfect. Once I've got it, stick with it. And the other thing is, if you double click on these, you'll find that they do get automatically added to your normal swatches. So you can actually see them and access them. So I'm just going to show you where they are. So that's just your normal window swatches. When you open that, any of the colours that you've double clicked on are going to turn up there. So you might want to actually ditch the ones we're not using. So if we're not using that one, let's get rid of it and make sure it's all the one. So it can be confusing if you have more than you need in there. So I should only have the 3 that I've decided to use for my job. Okay, so that's my 3 colours that I'm going to work with. And I know they're Pantones because I can see that. So down here, I've already named the colour, but this is what you would need to do, and this tells the designer who might have to work with it, as well as being able to present this to the client, it tells them what colours they can work with. So we go ahead and we can put our main 3 colours in here, and you would need to put the name of the colour, the code for it, under each one. So to find that, of course, you just look on your swatches palette or double click on it, and you'll be able to see it, read it, and so on. And once they're in here, you can double click on them or roll over it, you can see the name for it. So, sorry, I've accidentally put that one in again. So try not to have extra ones, because you've got to remember each of these generates a separate plate through the press. So having accidental ones is a big no-no. So if I now double click on that, so I know that's Pantone 7466 CP. So I can just name that under there, etc. So you would do that under each one. What was it? 76. Roll over it again. Oh, sorry. It's this one. 7466. So you do that under each one. And what you'd also do is think about whether you'd like to work with some tints of those colours. So if I decide to say work with a tint of the yellow, now that I've got the main yellow, if I double click on it, the Pantone colour, and if I bring up my window, sorry, just shut that for a second, window colour palette, when you click on that window colour palette, you'll see your particular Pantone coming up. So this is the colour palette. And now what I can do is I can select one of these smaller circles, and I might arrange it underneath so it's clear what it is. And I can make that a percentage of the colour. So maybe I want to work with a softer version of it, 50%. Maybe I want to go to 30%. Let's see what 30% of that colour looks like. So it might be a colour like that. Hit enter. When you hit enter, it applies it. And there I've got my 30%. And I would need to write underneath it Pantone 116C 30%. So you could do that for each of these. So you could easily get a 30% version, and that becomes another colour you can work with, you know, or you might try 50%, a little bit of experimenting. Hit enter to see it applied, and you would just write underneath it what percentage you've actually put in there as another colour that they can work with. It's not a separate colour, it just gives you an option. Oops. Sorry, I need to select that one. It just gives you some extra options when you're working with your colours. So you can get a little bit more complex, and perhaps when you're applying your design to your other design object, whether it's a poster or a brochure or a t-shirt design, whatever your other object you're designing with, you then have some extra colours to work with. So once you've got the Pantone, it's then pretty easy for you to specify the CMYK colours that would be the nearest match to it. So if you do decide that it's okay to use the CMYK version, you might have to move a few of these items around a bit. That's maybe not giving you enough room. So just move those down, because under this now, you need to put the other values of that colour, and you do this for each colour. So again, if you click on it in here, have nothing selected, so click off everything. So you're just looking at that colour. Go to the side of your colour menu here, and then switch to the RGB values for that colour. So this gives you the screen version. So if somebody has to design a website with this, they could. So they could get on screen the closest match, and we're going to write in what those values are underneath each one. So you would say R equals 236, G equals 0 in this case, and oh sorry, I'm doing the pink one, so I'm the wrong one. So I'll just keep going with them. And 140 for B. B equals 140. So that would give you the, sorry, that was that one. That would give you the RGB version for that colour. So just move these down so they're out of the way. So we want the Pantone version. Let me just do that one now. So that might be confusing. So what's the RGB for this one? 255, we can see over there. So I might copy that back and just change the values. Now I've got it set up. That'll be the quickest way to do it. So what are they for this one? So if I look at the yellow, just switch to the RGB view, and I've got to put in 255, 214 and 0. So 255, 214, and 0 is the last for B is 0. B equals 0. So I might change that back to black or something so you can actually read that. So now I have the Pantone colour, and I have the, just changing that, and the RGB values. So someone can replicate that colour for a screen, probably for a website. And then the last one is for commercial printing again. Sometimes you might want a very large area of yellow as a background or something, or you want a large area of tint. So then you can switch to that CMYK value. You need to have your colour selected, and then switch to that. Sorry, just undo that for a sec. Just make sure you've got nothing selected. So I'm running into trouble because I've got something selected. So select your colour either here or on here, and then switch to CMYK, and then the same sort of thing. You're going to type up the CMYK values underneath. So it's going to look something like this. Obviously you make a nice arrangement of it. So instead it's going to be cyan equals, I keep switching off it, cyan equals 0. So 0, 14, 100. Cyan equals 0. Magenta equals 14. CM, what did yellow equal? Let's go back and check. So you've got to have your colour selected to look. Switch to that CMYK. Oh yes, what a surprise. Yellow is 100 and black is 0. So yellow should equal 100 there. And black equals 0. So K is the symbol, or key colour is black. So that would equal 0. So that's your cyan, magenta, yellow and black values. So you have one more, which is also RGB, and that is your WebSafe colours. So you can have a look at your WebSafe RGB colour. That's the /FFD600. So you also would add that in. And you can arrange these any way you like to sort of fit on the page nicely, you know, make a decent kind of showing of it. So I'll just bring that down there. And this is my WebSafe colour. So you're either going to, straight that down, and type in that. So this one's for that WebSafe colour. So it's your hashtag and then whatever the number of the web colour was, which I've now forgotten, just remind myself. It was FFD600. You can always check that one, WebSafe RGB. FFD600. So I've got to put FFD600 in there. FFD600. So that is how you do it, and for our you know, for labelling this, either above or below it, you know, make a neat arrangement of it. You know that's the same Pantone, but it's just a percentage of it. So you would actually say what percentage, and this is like a guide for people to use, and they only use what you've said can be used. So a style guide basically says you can use this and nothing else but this. So you would say what percentage that is. So that was like 30% or something, I can't remember now, but whatever it was, you put in the percentage up here. So that it's clear to people exactly what they can use. Yeah, so it'll be like that. And obviously, you know, you can make a much nicer arrangement than I have. But that's the general idea of what you do to get these colours working. So you have your Pantone and then you'll line up all the values underneath and so on. So I'll take those ones off now, just because they're confusing things a bit. And you would go ahead and make a nice design of this, you know, put these things wherever you want and move the headings around. So it's, you know, it's up to you how you organise the page. So you're presenting a style guide. So I will show you a finished one in a minute. So you get to this point where you've got your main colours. Now, 3 colours is a lot for a logo, so she actually probably wouldn't need, the student probably wouldn't need any more colours. But sometimes with a 2-colour logo, you need to figure out a couple of other colours that might work with it. And you might want to use this next tool at the beginning of the design process. So you search out some colours. Maybe the main colour of the logo is going to be one of these and you're not sure about which ones to put with it. So how would you find these 2 other colours? So you have a great tool here, which I'm going to show you. Your colour themes. And I know you've probably already looked at Colour Guide. That's useful too. So Colour Guide does show you a whole lot of different sets of colours that will work together. And in your colour theory subject, you are learning about those. So basically you make sure that your key colour is the one selected, and then it picks out complementary and so on. So that's all good. You could use that tool. But what if you really don't have a clue? You have this other lovely tool which you may not have come across, which is called Colour Themes. And this basically has all the colour rules that you've been learning about accessible. So how does this work? So usually, you know, it happens when you're really stuck and you don't know what to do. So to get an idea, it lets you play with the colour wheel and it lets you flick with your key colour, which is this central one here, and find other combinations. And it's a little bit more intuitive than the other tool they've got because you really can play around with the colours and add colour sets over here to your swatches. So I'll just demonstrate that. So say you get a bit stuck, you've got this magenta and you don't know, that's the main colour that you're working with, because you've got this mad trash word you come up with and you haven't yet figured out to use the triangle in yellow. The rectangle thing in yellow. So you would make the purple, say, if that's the one you're having trouble with, you would make that your key colour by saying set selected colour. No, that didn't quite work. Should be there, should be that one. Oh, I can select it. Set selected colour. Should end up there. Yeah, should end up in the middle like that. Set selected colour. So this one with the tag is basically your key colour, and usually it would be the most dominant colour in the logo. So this lets you look at other colour combinations, and I'm looking at triadic, which is basically what she's used in here. But you can see if the greeny blues and the yellows are what it suggests in the triadic combinations. So she's used something a little bit like that. So if I wanted a more pure yellow, I could get one. But we do it all in relation to that particular colour. So if it's that colour that's bothering me, you need to set that as the selected colour, and then you're getting the other options that would work with it. So she's pretty close with what she's got there to it. So that's triadic. You see it's equal distance on the colour wheel. Yep, an equilateral triangle. And you also can see that you can move it to soften it, you can desaturate it, you can go much, much lighter with it, so you can move to the centre and get a really faded version of it. Now that could be really useful. If I look at that set of colours, that's actually a lot more interesting than the straight tints there. So what I could do, instead of using those tints, is say, look, this is a nice little range of colours. I'm going to have those as my extra colours that people are allowed to use. And this would obviously be a tint. See, that's really close to that. But then these other ones, I prefer those. So I'd figure out what those are, and I can add those to the swatches. So it's just a way of figuring out, if I do need extra colours, how would I get them in relation to my dominant colour that I'm having a problem with. And this is particularly going to occur when the dominant colour is a colour you're not comfortable working with. So that's the colour wheel for triadic. But of course, if we wanted to think, well, what would be a harmonious set of colours to go with that, I might look at the analogous ones. And now there's a lovely rich set of colours that are going to work with my key colour. And again, I could add those to the swatches, but you've got to make decisions and limit it. I'm not saying you should work with all of these with this on your colour guide. This is more a tool that you use at the beginning of the process when you're starting to work out the colours that would go with your particular logo. So you've figured out the main colour, and then you're trying to figure out which way you want to go with putting other colours with it. And then you would go ahead and find the actual Pantones that match those, or tints that are close to it, which is what we've kind of done already. But you've got analogous, you've got complementary opposite. So if you suddenly wanted an extra contrast to it, instead of using the blue, you might decide to go for the green. So that's going to be a much harsher contrast. You can see how much stronger and harsher and possibly, really a bit leery, a bit glary, a bit hard on the eyes, that one. But you might decide you want to have that to use with that colour. And like I said, this would be something you would play with at the beginning of the decisions about the logo rather than at this stage. But see, if I drag in, I'm desaturating and getting tints, but I'm also desaturating. So you can see a desaturated set could be really nice to work with. They're still complementary opposites, but they're a lot softer and moving towards the neutrals. Again, I can add those to the swatches. So I've got them there to play with and use if I need them for other designs. Compound colours, that gives you pretty much 2 sets of complementary opposites. And again, decide on your key colour and set the selected colour. Doesn't want to do it. Should be the one with the key. You'll see it's the one that's got a tag on it. I think I've misplaced it. See, it's got the tag. That's the one that's the selected colour that you should be controlling when you set that selected colour. See, it's moved now to that selected colour that matches. And then I get 4 colours that I could work with, yet another combination of colours that would work with that key colour. So at the beginning of the process, if I didn't want to go with this set, I wanted an alternative set of colours. I want to try this logo in alternative sets of colours to show the client, and they haven't decided. This is a way you would keep their key colour, which you don't have a choice, right? They've come up with that magenta, and you want to show them other sets of colours that would work with it. That's the idea. So that's compound, and then you can go straight to shades, so that's also helpful. And again, you can desaturate them, get a softer set, and if you like them, add them to your swatches. So then you've got custom. So custom, you can just take these and just play with them. So you can set that up, and this is one where you could use split complementary. So if you find the complementary, then you say, okay, maybe I actually want to work with, here's my selected colour, and then I can take the other two and I could do split complementary. So I could manually go and select split complementary and set as a direct complementary opposite, which is that. I could go to 2 others that are slightly on either side, and again I get a really interesting but harmonious group of colours, and I could add that to the swatches. And so there I've got the ability, once I've done that, to try this logo out in these other sets of colours and show them to the client in email or in person to just sort of see which versions they're going for. So you might have 3 or 4 colour versions before you make a decision. After you've made the decision is when you then go and do the process I just showed you of actually saying, okay, we've worked through these colour combinations, we've explored colour, now we want to decide the exact ones so that this can actually be printed, and I can make sure that anyone who uses my logo can print it. And so that's when you would go. The decision's been made, we're not playing around anymore, and we're not adding random Pantones. We're then looking at this, we're going to our printed swatch book and finding the colour code, and then going to our window colour libraries, swatch libraries, colour books, bridge coated, that just means coated paper, and then we're not choosing randomly from here, we're choosing after having made our decision. And it's just really the technical process of making sure that instead of an RGB in here, you've got either a CMYK version of it, because you know how to make that, or you've got the actual Pantone because you've discussed it with the customer and they go, no, they have a look at it and they go, no, it's not going to print right in CMYK. So what would print okay would be this one, because it's actually, we chose a process colour, or she had originally chosen a process colour. So that would be a direct magenta, and that would be cheap. The yellow, on the other hand, to get a really nice soft yellow like that, you would definitely want to use a Pantone, because you'll tend to get the CMYK version of that looking quite acidic. It might have a little bit of black in it. It's just going to look dull, and even possibly, slightly off. Oranges are by far the worst. They go quite brown when it's CMYK, and the only way to get a good orange or a bright red, or even a good lime green, is to go and use a proper Pantone colour and give them a style guide where they have the option to get that correct CMYK version of it if needed. So I'm going to, I think that's enough with choosing colours. I'm going to show you a couple of finished ones now before I finish up, just so you get an idea of how it should look. So this is for a website, a diploma student. So we get the logo nice and large. This is how it's this is the most used way, the main way it's going to be used. We get our colour palette, and because it's for a website, they've only put the web colours in, but it's a really good idea to have the actual Pantone to begin with and then work from it like I've shown you. because then, you know, if you gave this to someone, they could only do a website with it. They'd be struggling. You'd be leaving them to their own devices to find the print versions of these. So you want to control that. And then down here, you might have some different alternative uses. So particularly, how is it if you've got to reverse that logo onto something? How can it be used? What can they do? Here's the black and white version. They could have to use that sometimes. And then the typefaces. So you need to put all the typefaces that are allowed to be used with it. So his students designated 2 typefaces that can be used in conjunction with this. This one, you won't see that that's part of the logo. It's a typeface that's part of the branding. It can be used elsewhere. So when you're choosing those alternative typefaces, it's a good idea to look at the qualities of your main logo. And you can see that these are quite square, these shapes. So then using a quite square kind of font makes sense with that. So this would appear, say if this logo's got to be on a brochure or on a poster or on a shopping bag or a swing tag and you need to write some other text, this is what you'd write it in. And this one may only be used for decorative headings. Yeah, so you would have a bigger style guide that would have a little bit more, well, a lot more information about where you can use these and how to use them. And style guides, proper style guides are like little books, either digital books or, you know, flip books they give you, or usually it's, you know, it's a printed one that you're handed. Particularly big companies spend a lot of money on it, and guess who makes, it's one of the biggest jobs you have if you're going to be working as a branding designer in the branding area, working on branding campaigns, you're the one that makes the style guide. So that's why you're getting involved in this now. So I think I've got another one I can show you, I hope. No, not. I did have a better one I wanted to show you. I'll just try one more, just so you get the idea. I don't know if this one's finished. We'll have a look at it. Here's one. Okay, so this one's for an app. So she's still working on that. There's a colour palette. She's only put the screen ones, but it should be all of them. And other elements and patterns and graphics that can be worked with. So these are all good sort of examples. So very quickly you're able to keep everybody on track with how to use it. Yeah. Let's see what else I've got in here. There's another one. Okay, so I guess you're getting the hang of it now. Yeah, when you save it and hand in the style guide, do make sure you make a PDF of it. If you give me the Illustrator file and you don't outline the fonts, this is what's going to happen. I won't be able to see them. So it's better to hand in a PDF of it. That way, and you know, especially if it's a decorative, hard to find font, which it often is with a logo, you need to outline the fonts, and that guarantees it'll work. Let's have a look at this one. Okay, there's one, another one. Okay, she hasn't done the naming, so, but she has got quite a few allowable colour variations there. But you at least have to have a black and white version. That's the no, she hasn't finished that one, so it might have been an earlier version. Let's see if I've got another one. I hope you're getting the idea from this. Oh, I don't think this one's finished. No, it's not finished. Nice logo, but not finished. Okay, I think that's probably enough.